Good morning, folks. Good morning. Good morning. Let's get this party started. I am calling to order the April MTA Board Meeting. Let's hear the safety announcement first and then public speakers. Jonathan, are you going to
I am,
see
yes.
this? Okay. Let's hear the safety announcement.
Your safety is of the foremost importance to the MTA. Therefore, we ask that you listen and adhere to the following instructions. If you witness an emergency, notify emergency personnel in the room and call 911 immediately. Please follow any audible instructions provided through the public address system or visually on screens in the event of an emergency. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell A just across the main hallway or stairwell B down the hallway past the elevators. If you have a mobility disability or cannot self-evacuate, please proceed to stairwell D or E for assistance by MTA staff or emergency personnel. An automated external defibrillator, AED, for use by trained personnel is in the main hallway just past the elevators. If you need assistance during an evacuation, please tell an MTA staff member or emergency personnel. Thank you and have a safe day.
Good morning and welcome to the public comment session of the MTA Board Meeting. We have 21 members of the public registered to speak today. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA rules of conduct and decorum. Public comments must pertain to specific items on today's meeting agenda. I would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there will be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. Our first speaker is Jesse Figueroa, followed by Deborah Greif.
Good morning, MTA. My name is Jesse Figueroa, U.S. Army veteran and accessibility transportation advocate. I also extend my recognition for Autism Awareness Month. I continue to liaise with the VA and veteran organizations. I recognize the forthcoming 10-week service changes on the crosstown line as CBTC installation and other infrastructure maintenance proceed. Transparent communication and strong mitigation plans will be essential to maintaining rider confidence throughout this critical modernization effort. I call out the elected officials to step up to the plate on accessibility. That's all I got. Thank you.
The next speaker is Deborah Greif, followed by Alan Kufika.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Deborah Greif. And I would like to first say that all the politicians and people complaining about you're going to miss weekends for the G train, they need to understand that we have to get that line fixed. It's a very old line. My mother, when she was alive and growing up in Williamsburg, that was the line she used. It is not accessible. Would be extremely hard for me. Only at Court Square and a few places could I get on and off with my walker. And I want that to be repaired and fixed so that they'll have the true great service that's needed for that area. My other wish is for this. Our current MetroCard van buses that you use, the bus is using a backlift bus. I know you have buses that are older, but they have the front loaders. I hope you can retrofit and change and use that because it's much easier, because sometimes when we have to go on the buses and we have to use the lift, it can break. Those are very old buses. So I appreciate if you would work to change and use the buses that have front lifts, because if the ramp doesn't work, you can manually pick it up. That'll make it truly accessible for whoever needs to update their Omni cards as well as being signed up. Thank you.
The next speaker is Alan Kafika, followed by David Kupferberg.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak today. Reasonable medical accommodation. My wife is the accessory right user. We followed all the rules. We filled out the forms. We have the medical documents brought into her recertification last summer. Still waiting. Because no reasonable medical accommodation, she cannot ride the large paratransit vehicles when it seats about 9 people because it makes her projectile vomit. Jennifer is suffering with a bad blood cancer that causes this issue. As such, we have to use taxi authorizations, and I have $400 worth of them outstanding because another problem. If we solve one issue, it's not going to pile up. At this point, I can't even afford to get her to her next chemotherapy session because I don't have the $400 back. We don't have a reasonable medical accommodation for her to get the broker service. I uses small vans. She does not throw up. So if anybody here can speak to me later about this, maybe we can get something done. I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for hearing me.
The next speaker is David Kupferberg, followed by Jason Anthony.
Good morning. My name is David Kupferberg, member Passengers United. On Friday, April 10th, over 100 seniors, local residents, and elected officials attended a rally not sponsored by Passengers United in Sunnyside, Queens, to oppose the relocation of the bus stop as part of the Queens bus network redesign on Queens Boulevard and at 39th Place. It is currently used by the Q32 and Q60 and would be relocated 1 block west to 39th Street. This stop would have a boarding island in front of a car dealership. Plus, people, especially seniors, would have to cross a dangerous bike lane in order to access the new stop. It would also be in front of a fire hydrant. On Wednesday, April 15th, despite no advance notice by the media, over 200 seniors and local residents, but no elected officials, attended a rally sponsored by Passengers United at the same bus stop to oppose its relocation. And we have the footage to prove that this is the truth. Despite overwhelming community opposition, the work order to relocate the bus stop from 39th Place to 39th Street was signed in late March. Hence, these rallies took place too late to prevent the bus stop's relocation. These rallies show that bus stop balancing is opposed by the public, elected officials, and the MTA's customers. Shame on the NYC DOT, and shame on the MTA.
The next speaker is Jason Anthony, followed by Sherry Petraka.
Good morning, everybody. Jason Anthony. This month I'm gonna wish happy anniversary to Rob Free and Justin on their anniversary and their positions. You guys are doing a very good job in your positions, and I'm proud of you guys. Let's talk about Second Avenue Subway. This project is very overdue, and let's get it going. Regarding the G train shutdown, this project, it should get going because I used the G train when I was going to school, and a lot of people in my neck of the woods in Boerum Hill and along Clinton Hill and Bushwick and Williamsburg used the G train to get to and from Church Avenue and Court Square, rely on it. So the upgrades are necessary, so let's get it done. And to those elected officials that are complaining about it, the MTA is going to deploy shuttle buses like they always have done, and with Hugo Samora on the lead, he's going to get the work done, and we trust on him. So we know that we're going to get the work done, and not like the other agency that's across the Hudson that they slow walk all of this. The MTA is going to get the work done. So, Jano, I know that you and Demetrius are going to get the work done, like always. So that's all for this month. Thank you.
The next speaker is Sherry Petraka, followed by Lauren Shan DeVille.
Good morning, members of the board and President Free. My name is Sherry Petraka, and I live at 377 Easton Street in Ronkonkoma. My property sits directly adjacent to the Ronkonkoma Long Island Railroad double track, and I'm here to formally request an immediate noise study and the installation of a noise mitigation wall along the main line segment bordering our neighborhood. I'm formally requesting this to be included in the already approved federal grant awarded for the Ocean and Pond Road Crossing Grade Elimination Project currently in its planning and engineering phase. Our neighborhood has seen massive increase in rail traffic over the last few years, yet the infrastructure to protect residents from this industrial level noise has not kept pace. With consistent exposure to the double tracks, the only thing separating us from the constant train traffic is a 6-foot chain link fence with no vegetation or buffer of any kind. The most disruptive impact comes from the frequent high-speed commuter trains and the heavy freight trains that pass through at all hours. I have personally taken readings with a sound meter at my property. They consistently reach over 90 decibels when a train passes, combined with the ground-shaking vibration of freight traffic and freight high-speed trains. This is a serious quality of life and health concern. This is significantly higher than the 67 decibels threshold used in the MTA and federal noise policies, and OSHA considers 85 decibels the level at which is a hearing damage. I am asking the MTA and Long Island Railroad to conduct a formal noise study at the location to prioritize the construction of a noise barrier in the next capital program that is already approved with a grant and is in the planning and engineering phase. We are not asking to stop the trains. We are simply asking for the same sound protection that the New York State DOT provides for highways and the MTA has implemented in the other expansion projects, specifically the parity and treatment Nassau County received during the double and third track project to protect residential health and property value. Despite our own double track completion years ago, our block on Easton Street, it remains exposed, and now take into consideration there is an ongoing discussion for Amtrak expansion to Ronkonkoma in 2026. Please allocate funds for the current capital program to install this permanent noise wall. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Lauren Shandeville, followed by Rick Horan.
Good morning, board members. My name is Lauren Shandeville. I am a senior researcher with Jobs to Move America, a nonprofit advocacy group that aims to hold government contractors accountable to their workers and the public that funds them. Last month, the MTA released a request for proposals for over 2,000 subway cars, the largest subway car purchase in its history. We're calling on the agency to attach good job standards, specifically the U.S. Employment Plan, to the RFP and subsequent contract, thereby ensuring this public investment benefits local economies as well as the workers who manufacture the products that literally move our city. Other transit agencies, such as the Los Angeles Metropolitan Transportation Authority and the newly created Northern Illinois Transit Authority, have adopted the U.S. Employment Plan in their procurement processes for major rolling stock purchases, allowing the agencies to score bids based on vendors' commitments to certain wages, benefits, and training programs. Both transit authorities require disclosure of compliance with these commitments in regular reports. Enacting this policy in New York should be a no-brainer. The MTA has given billions of dollars in public money to manufacturers like Kawasaki, which uses low-paid temporary workers to build its subway cars. This is the least the agency can do to ensure that future subway investments create the kind of good, family-sustaining jobs we all deserve. Once again, we ask that the MTA adopt the U.S. Employment Plan in its RFP and subsequent contract. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Rick Horan, followed by Lisa Daglian.
Good morning, everyone. Appreciate your time. Last month, the Steer Group released the results of a QueensLink study funded by over 1,600 individual donors, which took a hard look at the benefits of reactivating the Rockaway Beach branch. As an existing north-south rail corridor, QueensLink shares many of the attributes that the MTA loves about the IBX. It leverages existing public transit assets, significantly cuts travel time for tens of thousands of users, connects with multiple east-west transit lines, and brings needed transit to underserved communities. But QueensLink also offers a host of unique benefits, such as diverting the M train south to the Rockaways will allow the G train to return to Forest Hills, increasing capacity on the Queens local lines by up to 50%. reduces congestion on the Van Wyck and Woodhaven Boulevard, and adds 33 acres of new parks. It also does some things better. For instance, it adds 21,300 new riders for each mile of new construction compared to the IBX's 11,400. And it connects two ends of the same standard subway system. The cost-benefit analysis confirms that QueensLink economic and environmental benefits will more than offset its operational and construction costs. But each project has its own unique and shared benefits, and both should be built as soon as possible. As the agency responsible for expanding, operating, and maintaining New York City subway system, we'd like to invite the MTA to be involved in this study from beginning to end, as the results are relevant to your planning decisions, and it's critical that the right questions are asked. Long-suffering Queens commuters are looking forward to working with the City of New York and the
Please
MTA
conclude your
to ensure
remarks.
that the reactivation becomes a priority and is included
you.
in the next.
Thank you. The next speaker is Lisa Daglian, followed by Monica Bartley.
I'm Lisa Daglian, the Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA PCAC. It's good to be here. It's a good time to be a bus rider. We're excited about the rejuvenated partnership between the MTA and the city, and seeing the passion and commitment that will bring us the faster, more reliable buses we know are possible. Yesterday's kickoff for the newly redesigned separated center running bus lanes on Flatbush Avenue will bring it closer to true BRT and be a game changer for 132,000 daily riders. The work will also improve safety across the neighborhoods. As we await more details on future corridors and routes that will see upgrades, we're also celebrating recent announcements on Fordham, Linden, and more. I've been riding the bus much more frequently and can honestly say that the vast majority of riders I've seen have tapped. The main exception has been after school, but we know that from our work on the Blue Ribbon panel that that's going to be a bigger ship to turn to education primarily. We support the work of the EGLE teams in quelling the tide of fare evasion and hope they're also sharing information about fair fares. Fare evasion should not be a crime of poverty, and we know that you agree with that. Expanding fair fares to increase eligibility to 300% of the FPL, implementing automatic enrollment, while allowing New Yorkers making 150% of the FPL to ride buses and subways for free is the best ways to ensure that everyone gets where they need to go. We're excited that Speaker Menon and the Council have continued to make this a top priority. The extent of the capital work coming to the G train, other routes, and various stations will bring some pain, but the gain will be overwhelmingly worth it. Accessible transit with reliable and frequent service should be the goal. We're all hoping there will be no pain on the Long Island Railroad next month and urge all parties to come to an agreement for the best interests of commuters across Long Island. A strike would be devastating with no winners. Thank you.
The next speaker is Monica Bartley, followed by Alita Dupree.
Good morning. My name is Monica Bartley, a member of Disabled in Action. I'd like to begin by commending Access-A-Ride for the recent expansion and improvement in service. However, I want to highlight a serious concern: trip length. Riders are often traveling up to 2.5 hours, sometimes across multiple boroughs. Trips that should take about an hour or an hour and a half can extend to as long as 2.5 to 3 hours. By the end of these trips, riders are frequently exhausted. This issue disproportionately impacts individuals with cognitive disabilities, who may become increasingly agitated or distressed during long rides. Reducing travel time is essential to ensuring a more equitable and dignified experience for all riders. I also support expanding the on-demand e-hail pilot program. Extending this program to more riders would provide greater flexibility and more responsive service. However, expansion must be done thoughtfully. It is crucial to address concerns about affordability, particularly for riders living on fixed incomes. Accessibility and cost must remain central priorities. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Alita Dupree, followed by John Padula.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Jano Lieber and members. Alita Dupree for the record. She and her with Team Folds. I'm in my element today. Grand Central. Grand Central Madison. Can't have enough Grand Central. It's good to be back with you. Did use the system today. And trying to get the word out about train time. I think we should have Al Poutre type announcements where we can say, it's train time. 'Cause I use it and it works and it's very helpful. I was in Metropolitan Station on the G service of the crosstown line. And I was pleasantly surprised. I saw BART-style fare gates, the same ones that they use on BART in the Bay Area. And BART is not just has 50 stations with these fare gates, but BART is also known as the People's System. So they work well in the Bay Area, so I think those new gates are going to work well for us in helping us to achieve our goals of the users of this famous system paying the appropriate fare. I ask that you not get cold feet. Please do not get cold feet when it comes to electric vehicles. Electric buses are going to get better. Electric vehicles in general are getting better. There are ways to manage electricity usage to handle this greater demand. We need to build our renewable energy powered subway. I think that I would enjoy the subway more if it was powered by renewable energy with batteries. And I have an all-electric home, so I'm familiar with these things. But it's good to be here with you all again. Hopefully I'll come more often. Thank you.
The next speaker is John Padula, followed by Jean Ryan.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Padula. I'm an administrator with Educational Vision Services from New York City Public Schools. We are the citywide department that handles the services for our city's students who are blind or have low vision. Jano, I think we're both quite familiar with the occasionally mind-numbing merry-go-round of perpetual problem-solving that administration and leadership can be. It can sometimes get a little lonely, feels a little thankless. And that's why I have to shout out Rachel and her team, who always handle problems as they arise efficiently and professionally. We had an eligibility issue with a student. It was reviewed. It was quickly handled. This is what professionals do, so thank you. Speaking of problem solving and problems, a few random thoughts. Number one, taxi authorizations. That department is drowning, I think, under paperwork. They need help. We're still over 100 days to get reimbursed for a trip. Number two, taxi authorizations are a great solution. I don't understand why borough lines are an artificial barrier. If somebody needs flexibility to get from one borough to another, we should be able to come up with a way to do that. Number three, on demand does need to be rolled out to people who want it and who need it. And the only fair way to determine access for number of trips is basically to go off of demonstrated need. Fourth issue, if you heard our illustrious VP of Accessoride on Monday, you know that funding and cost is a problem. And Jano, you said it, I believe it was last summer, this agency should not be penalized for improving paratransit. Thank you for doing so, but our city and state leaders, government has to be effective, and it has to help problem solve. It's got to solve problems. It can't idly just stand by. It can't just bury its head in the sand and pretend like something doesn't exist. This needs to be addressed. We all need to sit down, and
Please
state and city
conclude your
leaders
remarks.
need to help us find money and balance.
Thank you.
These issues. Thank you. My name is John Padula.
The next speaker is Jean Ryan, followed by Saeed Hassan.
I'm Jean Ryan, President of Disabled in Action of Metropolitan New York, DIA for short. This month marks the 9th year that disability rights groups and individuals have a lawsuit about elevator maintenance and letting people know when elevators are not working. That could be because they are broken, they are being replaced, or for some other reason. Whatever the reason is, we need to know when they are not working. And this anniversary is not a happy one. In my daily life, in discussions with friends, parents who bring their children to the daycare next door, my doctors who have young children, seniors, and people I meet in all circumstances, including disability, all complain that the subway elevators often are not working when they need and depend on them. It's not just people with disabilities who need the elevators. There must be many ways that people can find out in advance when subway elevators are out. Quibbling about what category an elevator is in will not help people who need the elevators. People need to know before they leave home or work, while they're on the train, the sidewalk, or the platform, and the mezzanine. The public needs to have confidence that they can take a subway elevator, that it will be there and working. Let's settle the elevator maintenance case this year and work on the solutions. 9 years is too long, and we don't want to get to 10 on this case. Thank you.
The next speaker is Ed Hussein, followed by Andy Pollock.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Saeed Hussein. I'm a section chairman for Transport Workers Union Local 100. TWU represents thousands of members who operate and maintain New York City Transit rail cars. TWU Local 100 continues to share its ongoing concerns about the MTA's contracting process and its continued business with Kawasaki Railcar. Jobs to Move America and Cornell's Climate Jobs Institute surveyed Kawasaki workers who reported troubling conditions on the ground. Surveyed Kawasaki workers noted hazardous and overheated environments, including heavy lifting, loud machinery, poor ventilation, and faulty equipment. The MTA has also chronicled a history of production defects and delays over its decades-long working relationship with the company. Last month, the MTA released the RFP to purchase 2,390 R262 subway rail cars, the single largest subway purchase by the MTA. With the $1.5 billion sole source award to Kawasaki last year, despite unions and advocates highlighting these concerning working conditions, and now the release of the R262 RFP, the MTA is missing an opportunity to ensure its significant investment of public dollars that are contributing to a good community sustaining job. Without some sort of accountability, the MTA is continuing with business as usual, rewarding bad apples, and not using its purchasing power to encourage manufacturers to be high road ones. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
The next speaker is Andy Pollock, followed by Miriam Fisher.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is Andy Pollock speaking from Passengers United. So a couple of things we're going to discuss. First up, we are all hoping that the Long Island Railroad can avoid the strike coming up on Saturday, May 16th. It would have devastating effects to the local economy, including the Brooklyn Half Marathon that will be taking place that weekend. The Yankees taking on the Mets that weekend at Citi Field are just a couple of the examples that I can give off the top of my hand. If it goes into long term, we may not see the annual Cannonball train run on May 22nd. So let's hope again a deal can be reached and we can avoid a devastating strike. A couple of other issues on the Long Island Railroad. The M7s are having problems again. Some of the sinks in the bathroom are not accurately working. I had that issue on the 1013 train from Port Washington to Penn on Monday in car 7055. Also, when I was coming back on the 221 trip in the East River Tunnel, the train is still making squeaking noises. So this comes to show that the M7s are showing their age. Just want to put that out there. In terms of subway safety, again, let me be very clear. The subways are not safe. 15-year-old was shot on the A line back on Monday night. And as far as what happened on the 7 train at 90th Street, we still don't know what happened with the unauthorized person that was struck by a train. We don't know if it was a subway surfing incident or if somebody got pushed onto the tracks. And lastly, I'm autistic, and saying autism awareness is very offensive to us. So we say Autism Acceptance Month. So to anybody on the autism spectrum, including me, I just want to say happy Autism Acceptance Month. The light blue color is appropriate given that it is Taurus season. So thank you all for letting me speak, and I hope to speak to you all again in May.
The next speaker is Marian Fisher, followed by Vittoria Bugatti.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. The disability activists rallied Monday, as you just heard from Jean Ryan, for better subway elevator maintenance. A lawyer for the activists has said, "We're pleased that the court recognized that the MTA failed to prove that it provides adequate notification to riders with disabilities or to adequately train its employees." This is quoting from the court. "We need announcements of outages on the loudspeakers, on the trains, on the platforms, on digital displays. Riders with disabilities are often stranded for hours and need to call emergency EMS services." Now I'd like to talk about the 23rd Street subway elevators. The MTA has approved subway elevators on 23rd, 7th, and 8th Avenues, needed desperately by the community. There are 5 subways between the Hudson and the East River. Only one is accessible. A letter to Jano Lieber was sent by our local electeds, Eric Botcher, Borough President Brad Holman Siegel, Assemblyman Tony Simone, and Congressman Jerry Nadler. Please work on the elevators on 23rd Street. And my last topic, bus stops and shelters. I applaud the DOT for planting seats on all bus stops that currently don't have seats, calling it a human right. We also need shelters at all of the bus stops. People not standing in heavy snow like we had a month or 2 ago, waiting for a bus by a lonely pole that says bus stops. We also need shelters at all bus stops. Thank you for listening. Miriam Fisher.
The next speaker is Vittorio Bugatti, followed by Yuki Endo.
Good morning. I'm Vittorio Bugatti, leader and founder of the Express Bus Advocacy Group. I'm here today to speak about the dangerous overcrowding that continues to occur on the 5:40 a.m. QM15 from Lindenwood to Midtown. This is the first QM15 of the morning, and it sees close to 70 people some weekday mornings, and the crowding is becoming worse by the week. This is today's commute and the background that I have here. The MTA promised during the Queens redesign to provide earlier express bus service to Queens commuters, and they have not met that promise, as evidenced by this QM15 trip, along with the 5:30 a.m. BM5 trip, also the first trip of the morning from Starry City. Level of overcrowding at this hour of the morning rush is ridiculous and completely inexcusable. We're requesting an earlier QM15 trip before this 5:40 a.m. trip from Lindenwood, and we also need an earlier BM5 trip from Starlight City before the 5:30 a.m. trip to mitigate the overcrowding ASAP before someone is seriously injured. Governor Hochul and Jano Lieber have both touted congestion pricing as being a huge success, but the MTA has been extremely reluctant to add more express bus service where it is needed. Find the funds in the operational budget and stop penny pitching. You're generating more funding than expected from congestion pricing, and commuters should be seeing more service, not less, even if those funds are supposedly only for the capital budget. Shiny new buses are nice, but do nothing when people are constantly showing up late to work as a result of this overcrowding or can't board the bus. We've been complaining and following formal complaints about this for months. The time to act is now. Thank you.
The next speaker is Yuki Endo, followed by Gilman Lang.
London is you cannot follow New York in Kobe, Japan, representing Passionate United Area Happy Sickness. I agree with many J2 Vodafone business. A shutting down J2 for every weekend in May is bad idea because Nathan Happy Joy Vegan Bakery near NASA Avenue J9 also work together with the New York City Ferry. If J2 drivers, I can be close corner between staff Hunters Point, Long Island City, and Denver. On the MTA survey, please do not conduct an New York City survey because it is going to be hard for the twin operator to see as he conducted earlier because the New York City survey are larger than the Global City survey, which sensing Unit 9 employee on the A-twin car. Conductors on the survey help people evacuate if emergency happen. Please do not relocate Queens Boulevard 39 West front of the dealership because it is dangerous and there are senior buses here in Kobe where Japanese fake buses almost got hit by the car coming out of the gas station. Because of the bus stop in front of them. During the MTA line and hence the construction, please provide shuttle buses, including West Beach Country Line, Garden City, because night bus has many buses. I'm hoping MTA Long Island Railroad Union will be able to work together to present buses strike and ask the union to schedule buses strike as the Northern. Please work with the Nassau County Night Bus, which is a candy vegan bus that bring only bring the nation. I'm grateful for Kawasaki Statute Railway to bring new cars product.
Please conclude your remarks.
New York City.
Thank you. The next speaker is Gilman Lang, followed by Iris Kelly.
Good morning, Chairman Lieber, members of the board. My name is Gilman Lang. I'm the General Chairman for the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, speaking on behalf of a coalition of 5 rail unions representing a majority of the Long Island Railroad unionized workforce. While the MTA publicly boasts about expanding service and strong revenue, our members fall further behind. Two independent presidential emergency boards composed of industry experts have reviewed the ongoing contract dispute on wages, work rules, and the MTA's ability to pay. They were clear. The union's position is the one that should be accepted. There is no pattern to break in the 4th year. Our proposal, 3.55% annually, barely keeps pace with inflation in one of the most expensive regions in the country. We have made compromises in our ask and are ready to sit down at the bargaining table to settle an agreement now. However, an agreement cannot be reached when one side refuses to come to the table. The MTA's responsibility should be to serve the public and to keep the Long Island Railroad moving. Instead, since the last meeting we requested, 40 days have passed. No response, no new bargaining sessions, no counterproposals, no sense of urgency. Rather than working towards a settlement, the MTA is preparing the public for failure, talking about limited bus services and ignoring the gridlock that will paralyze Long Island if the trains stop running. That is not a plan. That is not leadership. And the so-called work rule issues being pushed publicly, both boards already addressed that. Those are management failures of staffing and planning. We want to keep the trains running. That's why we requested the meet, and that's why we compromised. But we will not agree to a concessionary agreement. And our members are prepared to strike at the earliest time permitted by law, May 16th at 12:01 a.m., a little more than 2 weeks from now. If that happens, let me be clear, this will be a management-created strike. The impact will be felt across this region. Riders stranded, businesses hurt, Long Island at a standstill. And it would have been completely avoidable. We are ready to settle this today. The only thing preventing that is the MTA's failure to act. The clock is ticking.
The next speaker is Iris Kelly, followed by Constance DeSole.
Yes, I'm Iris Kelly, and I'm representing
interested about the railroad, having things taken care of. Maybe good also if we could add Apple Pay and Wi-Fi and make it easy for people to work on their phones quickly to get to the tickets. And also, you need to have more things to be taken care of with this. Also, then switching over for the Sussa ride, they need to have the on demand for everybody, not just some. Because I'm losing out on things with family. People like to plan things right away, last minute stuff. Then they find they can't go because I have to plan 2 days before to get a trip to that. I mean, it's ridiculous. They need something better than that for other people and make it more accessible. And then for the railroad, back to the railroad story, is that they need to get this done. Don't make it bad for people, MTA. Get on it now. I use it every weekend, every day up along out to Northport, my Christian ministry, and maybe I'll be able to get out there. It's the only way I'm able to go there and back. I enjoy my time out there for our Lord Jesus Christ. It's important to us all, for this world, and we need to get things done now. Thank you.
The next speaker is Constance DeSole, followed by Christopher Grave.
My name is Constance Lasold, and I am representing the Eastern Parkway Environmental Alliance. I would like to bring to your attention that we will definitely continue indefinitely till it happens the fight to restore the B-71 bus. It is an essential bus that unites eastern and western sides of Brooklyn. There was a day when people didn't want to come through Crown Heights by way of the Franklin Avenue shuttle from the southern part of Brooklyn. But you guys listened and you acted and you created a subway system that worked 100% better by connecting all those lines with the shuttle. I'm sorry if I'm not quite clear, but I think you know what I mean. If you listen to the public, and I'm sorry, but Community Board 8 in Brooklyn tells me that you are not listening in terms of the buses, and that the plans for the future of the buses will be a disaster for Crown Heights and for the disabled community in particular, which very much use the 45 bus, which seems to have started ahead of time to skip blocks. Because yesterday, going to my doctor, they did not stop at Classen Avenue, which connects with the 48, and told me I should have gotten off at Franklin Avenue. No, that doesn't work. So thank you very much, and I support everything that Gene Ryan said as a member of DIA. It is very important that you continue to support all the ways that you do for people with disabilities. Thank you.
The final speaker for today is Christopher Grave.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Christopher D. Greif. First things first, as everyone's mentioned about the G train and the Long Island Railroad Union, but there's one thing that both of them forgot, our elected officials: accessibility. Seniors and people with disability uses the transportation. And I'm going to say that every time because we use it. And let's not forget that seniors, people with disability, and veterans uses it. Not just using the trains and buses, not just the bridges, but they use it. Also, happy anniversary to our 2 President's Railroads. So happy anniversary, because getting things accomplished and moving forward. As Autistic Awareness Month, we saw a wonderful events. A lot of people are in love with it. They're still asking when can they get their autographs from the presidents, the chairs, because they love it, because they feel like you guys are superheroes. But now also I wanted to add 2 things in my $1.50s, as my other advocates have mentioned. The reduced fare vehicles are legend and antique, but we do need to update them sooner or later because we need to make sure that they're getting the assistance. Since they go up to upstate New York, Westchester, but Nassau County sooner or later will get them, hope so. But we still want to make sure they're up to date and helping those seniors and people with disabilities for the future. Also, the Neverlands and the Combo are very important parts for everyone from disabilities. And I hope our federal elected officials and state can hear me loud and clear, because they don't, I will cause them grief very clearly that these things are very important on the buses and subways. The Convo has helped people. The Navalance helps people, not just in disability work, but languages as well. So hearing this very clearly to them, please make sure that the funding goes in and continues for the future of accessibilities. As you know, Disability Pride Month is around the corner. We want to make sure the future of it moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Lieber. This concludes our public comment session.
Okay. We're about to go into executive session to, guess what? Approve some labor agreements by a couple of unions that actually came to agreement with our team. But we heard from the podium that the Long Island Railroad unions who have not settled would like to resolve it today. The National Mediation Board was supposed to be pulling us together for a mediated session. They rescheduled because of people not available on their end. I suggest that those Long Island Railroad unions who said that they want to resolve it today go in the back room with Anita Miller, our head of labor relations, is here. Rob Free, the president of Long Island Railroad's here, and let's go in the back. Let's go in the back and negotiate. We've been trying to negotiate this for some time, so let's go. Mr. Peluso, the head of TCU, gives me thumbs up. So Rob, Anita, let's go have a discussion and see if we can make some progress, because I think we both very much want to get something going, and I don't. And the suggestion that the MTA has not been willing to negotiate is nonsense. So let's get this going right now, right here today. I welcome their willingness to go going. Okay. Okay. All right. I need a motion to go into executive session to approve those labor. Second, Mr. Garodnik. Motion is Blanca Lopez. We're in executive session. Okay, we're coming back to. Again, I just want to thank the members of the public who spoke, including folks who turn out again and again to support and participate in what the MTA does. You are, I mean, I say it all the time, but you are very much part of the MTA family. Paige, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Okay. While in executive session, the board discussed and voted affirmatively on 2 labor agreements between the MTA and 2 of our labor organizations, 2 of our 80 labor organizations that we do collective bargaining with. So we're always glad when those kinds of agreements are approved. As I said, I want to thank everybody for joining us. It is spring, and when all eyes turn to Albany, the state budget negotiations are ongoing. MTA always has a lot at stake in these sessions, but this year we do not have a big financial risk, a financial ask of the legislature, though, as I said, there are some major issues being debated, including a package of toll enforcement powers that we really, really need to upgrade our work to get persistent toll violators, these chronic toll violators who run up huge bills and don't pay, and we're looking for some additional statutory help from the legislature to deal with that. But I want to acknowledge I've been especially vocal about another issue, which is Governor Hochul's auto insurance proposals. It's still unclear whether the final version of the reform package that's being negotiated will include all of the provisions that the MTA has been fighting for. But however it comes out, I want to say I could not be prouder to be part of Team Hochul on this very important issue. The governor is highlighting a huge affordability problem, and I'm optimistic that her effort will give car-owning New Yorkers, who are including millions of people who ride the MTA, not a secret that a lot of folks in New York have cars. They leave them at home in their neighborhood, and they ride transit to work all week long and frequently on the weekends. Many of there's not tension between us and the folks who own automobiles. Millions of them are our customers, and we want them to get a break on their insurance costs. We always talk about transit being a source of affordability. There's no reason that they shouldn't get affordability from their auto insurance as well. But, you know, it's also been obvious that we're not in love with the billboard lawyers who seem to be, who are advertising everywhere, including on the MTA system, an issue that I'm interested in taking a look at, and who seem passionate about taking money off of the public by suing the MTA, even when we're really not responsible for auto accidents. For what it's worth, we're going to do our part to train our bus drivers to optimize the safety of everybody out there on the road, pedestrians and cyclists, as well as drivers. And also because we got to limit our riders' exposure to the endless creativity of the negligence bar. You might have heard about the new simulators at the Zarega bus depot, where both the trainees and veteran operators are getting practice navigating the increasingly crazy environment that you see on the streets, with the e-bikes zipping around, so on and so on. We're all aware of that. I tried it out myself. That's the photo of me white-knuckling that big steering wheel. It was not easy. And you can see that the fellow who oversees this training is closely observing to make sure that I didn't do anything to embarrass the agency in front of the press. So let's just say that I'm keeping my day job. Kidding aside, everything that happens in Albany has an impact on what we do here, and it's going to be reflected in our July financial plan. All these labor negotiations hit home very quickly when Jay has to present to you a new financial plan that reflects not just the projections, but the reality of what is agreed to. Today in the executive session, as I said, we approved labor agreements, but the deals with the Long Island Railroad outlier unions, who we heard from this morning, are still unresolved. And we're going to provide in a few minutes, as one of the specials, an update on the financial consequences of a potential strike to our budget, but also to the public. And we're going to hear from Chief Customer Officer Shanifa Riera about the contingency planning that's going on. Folks, we got to scrutinize the financial consequences and the financial scenarios, since whatever comes out of this negotiation and this situation ultimately comes back to the riders and the taxpayers. Somebody's got to pay if we break pattern. Somebody's got to pay. And we just want to make sure that this board, who are fiduciaries, understand what is at stake in this negotiation. The MTA has clawed its way back to financial stability over the last few years. And you all were key participants in that process. And you know we cannot jeopardize the progress that we made, which allowed us to put on more service and better service and keep fare increases to 2% a year. If we have a financial settlement, a labor settlement that cascades through our entire labor relations situation that goes a long way above those projections, it means something's got to be done. And it could mean not only fare increase or a service cut. This is what we were fighting against when we confronted the fiscal cliff a couple of years ago, and we do not want to go backward. The other big news this month was, of course, the restoration of that long-withheld federal funding for 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2. Let's be honest, the feds blinked at the last minute, 2 hours before we were due in court. The good news came just in time to avoid any delays to the project schedule. This is something that Jamie and I were in touch with about on an almost daily basis, because we were trying to avoid letting that drama actually impact the project schedule. But since this board approved the contract last month, recall, we were able to award it immediately without coming back to you for more process. And we started moving that huge excavation project forward immediately. And we're able to salvage the schedule. So I just want to thank everybody who enabled us to get that contract in a position that we were able to protect the schedule. On Friday, 2nd Avenue Subway again, we hosted a hiring event in East Harlem to let residents know about job opportunities and the apprenticeships, the construction apprenticeship programs that are associated with 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2. We need to work closely with our labor partners, the unions, the construction, building trades unions, and others. But it was a great event. Turnout over 1,000 people, a ton of interest, not only in the construction jobs, but jobs at the MTA. You hear us promoting that the MTA is hiring on the subways. And at this event, we got a lot of people signed up who might not have otherwise taken that step. There are going to be a lot more of these events in the future. We're determined to assure that the capital program in general and 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2 brings not only better transit access to jobs, but delivers actual jobs for the people of East and Central Harlem who have waited so long for this great project. Between 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2 and the rest of the capital program, Jamie and the team at MTA Construction and Development are busier than ever. They've got $6 billion worth of projects currently in construction. There are billions more that are already, contracts are awarded and the construction is mobilizing. And again, billions more that are in the procurement process. On Monday, you heard about all the work underway that is specifically being funded by the congestion pricing revenue stream. So check out the examples on the list on the screen. In the coming days, New Yorkers are going to be able to spot these specific projects in the wild. We're putting up new decals at job sites, which, as you see on the screen, highlight that this improvement is actually made possible by congestion pricing. It is important to us to remind New Yorkers of the benefits that this project is having, not just in terms of traffic reduction, improved air quality, improved safety on the street, but specific investments in our transit system. And we're going to be out there making it plain. Public outreach for the Interborough Express is also advancing quickly. As part of our Earth Day celebrations, we announced dates for another 6 community workshops. These are communities along the proposed light rail line, and full details of those events are available on the MTA website. Fitting news for Earth Day, because we project that IBX will eliminate almost 22 million miles of passenger vehicle trips every year. This is a game changer for folks who have less access to transit in those neighborhoods that will be served. We've also been out in Jamaica soliciting feedback that'll help guide the governor's proposed renovation of that big multimodal terminal that we all know as Jamaica Station. Senator Comrie, who's the chairman of the Committee of Jurisdiction in the New York State Senate, Senator Comrie joined Rob Free and Jamie Torres Springer last week to actually talk to riders in person about that big and exciting project. The survey about Jamaica is also available online. We threw up the QR code on the screen, but again, it's something that you can access through the MTA website. And while you're at it, don't forget about Customers Count. The spring survey went live earlier this month, and we're going to be collecting responses through the first week of May. In recent years, this has been a significant initiative for us. Hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers are participating in these twice-a-year surveys. And we're getting a huge amount of information, especially about customer priorities and their attitudes and their concerns and about their experience on our system. So the more people who participate, the better. And with that, I'll bring it to a close and ask Kathy Sheridan to talk about the progress that's being made in reducing collisions on the bridges and tunnels. Mr. Mack, it's all good news about your beloved bridges and tunnels. Listen to Kathy.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. Today I'm here to talk about how MTA Bridges and Tunnels' data-driven approach has been reducing collisions across our 7 bridges and 2 tunnels. Traffic incident management, traffic operations, and traffic engineering are incredibly important to ensure efficient and reliable travel for our customers. Every 15 minutes of roadway closure can generate an additional hour of traffic delay, and roughly 20% of all traffic incidents result from conditions created by a previous incident. Here you see our traffic and collision trends. We are extremely proud we reduced collisions by more than 60% from a peak in 2019, all while traffic volumes have increased to record levels of 30 million vehicles per month. In addition to the positive trends resulting from the implementation of congestion pricing, this reduction in collisions has saved New Yorkers thousands of hours of traffic delays, improving travel times and quality of life. The positive trend is attributed to proactive measures we have coined the 3 E's: engineering, enforcement, and education. In collaboration with MTA Construction and Development, based on accident location and frequency data, we have and continue to address specific locations to enhance traffic operations and customer safety. At the Bronx Whitestone Bridge, improving the geometry of the southbound Queens approach reduced collisions by 75%, while widening the roadway on the Verrazano Narrows Bridge Belt Parkway merge has reduced collisions by 30%. Ongoing is the reconstruction of the Brooklyn approach ramps at the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, with expected completion in 2029. We anticipate the new right-hand ramp exit and wider Belt Parkway ramps will again significantly reduce traffic collisions and improve customer safety. We are also implementing operational improvements, including intelligent transportation systems, or ITS technology, which you heard about at B&T's committee meeting on Monday. Since 2017, there have been 6 instances of overheight vehicles entering our tunnels. The most significant incident occurred in 2023 and took over 5 hours to clear. This incident also caused millions of dollars in damage to the tunnel. Overheight vehicle detection systems identified and stopped 3,000 vehicles in 2025, preventing damage and traffic delays. The systems provide alerts, activate variable message signs, sound alarms, and activate visual beacons, instructing drivers to pull over and stop. I'd also like to clarify a question which arose at Monday's committee meeting. While we don't have suspended steel beams, which would strike an overheight vehicle to alert the driver, we do have metal chains with either plastic or metal tubes which hang down at the tunnel clearance height. These tubes more gently strike a vehicle and provide warning to that driver. So both the high-tech and low-tech solutions we employ are extremely important. Additionally, Bridges and Tunnels, with many public and private partners, coordinates resources to detect, respond to, and clear traffic incidents as quickly as possible, reducing incident impacts and protecting the safety of on-scene responders and the traveling public. Incident response times at B&T facilities averages 6 minutes, which is a 1 minute or 14% reduction since 2019. This safe and efficient response is accomplished through pre-positioning of response vehicles at strategic locations across each facility, especially during peak volume periods. In traffic management, every second counts. By eliminating just 1 minute from our response times, we've eliminated over 600 hours of yearly delays for New Yorkers. This small shift effectively prevents the ripple effect that turns minor incidents into major gridlock. For enforcement, or really deterrence purposes, our bridge and tunnel officers, MTA PD, and the New York State Police maintain a visible presence on our roadways. We've issued over 50,000 summonses for various safety-related vehicle and traffic law infractions since 2020. Lastly, we use education and communication messages to reinforce safety and real-time roadway closures and conditions to motorists. In collaboration with our partners at MTA Customer Communications, the Press Office, and Transcom, we reach customers through a multi-pronged approach, using press releases, social media, real-time incident communications using VMS signage at our facilities and across the region, and direct text or email alerts customized to driver preferences for their specific commutes or travel patterns. These alert details can be found on the website at mta.info. Furthering both education and enforcement, to kick off last week's National Work Zone Awareness Week, Governor Hochul highlighted the importance of reducing excessive speed and eliminating distracted driving, especially adjacent to work zones. 900 fatalities and 40,000 injuries occur in highway work zones nationwide every year, and that is unacceptable. It's not unreasonable to expect that each and every highway worker will return home to their loved ones each and every day. The governor was also instrumental in advancing the statewide automated work zone speed enforcement program set to launch this summer at B&T crossings. We are optimistic about the benefits of this program to keep our workers and the driving public safer. We are proud of the progress we've made to keep our crossings, employees, and customers safe, and seek to implement new technologies and techniques for continual improvement. Thank you.
I mean, Kathy, the automatic speed enforcement that the governor, can you talk more about that a second? Because the governor's made that a priority. I can tell you from experience, I live not far from Ocean Parkway, which used to be routinely people going 60 plus miles an hour. And since they put in speed cameras, everybody drives 30. It's great. Amazing. Are we looking at something similar for our crossings under the governor's leadership? Is that the situation?
Yes. When workers are present in work zones, we will be deploying cameras with technology to issue automated summonses for those infractions. This was implemented 2 years ago at New York State DOT and New York State Thruway. I mean, they clock people in work zones at 139 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That's like somebody driving through your office at 139 miles an hour. That's not safe for the driver. That's not safe for the workers.
Yeah, and I was on the I-95 last weekend, and in Connecticut, they had at one of the rest stops, they had a sign of the names of all the workers who have been killed, roadway workers. It's like 50 people in the last, 25, 30 years. This is serious, and we would like to be in the leadership of trying to cut down on that kind of work zone safety infraction. So please push that ahead if you can. Any questions for Kathy? This is amazing news. You know, we're down 60% on collisions, and a lot of work goes into it. It's a low-key team at B&T. Everybody knows they don't yell and scream as much as like C&D does about their success. Just looking at Jamie. But that's a huge accomplishment for everybody, what you're doing. Any questions or comments? Mr. Mack, it's good news on the bridges and tunnels. What do you got to say?
You're right, and there's no substitute for a uniform or a painted car, and that's part of our success. I'd like to see our bridges and tunnel officers be a little more active in enforcing the laws. I'm on the bridges and tunnels, as you can see by my toll record, at least 4 times a day, and going back and forth with different jobs that I have. Still keep going, Jano. Okay, and thank you all.
Okay, Kathy, thank you. Anybody else? All right, Jamie's not going to get to respond to my little jest. Let's keep going. Turning back to the discussion that started unexpectedly earlier, we're going to hear now from Jay Patel about the financial consequences or financial issues associated with the potential Long Island Railroad strike, and Shanifa is going to talk a little bit about, Shanifa Riara is going to talk about our contingency planning. Jay? And Anita is actually in the back room with the unions, hopefully talking. So we'll, if she was meant to participate, we'll improvise without her. Go ahead, Jay.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard from the board and other stakeholders to provide a refreshed look at the potential Long Island Railroad strike's impact on our financial outlook and service. Earlier this week, Rob Free provided a small update to the Railroad Committee, but this will be a little bit more extensive. Later in the presentation, you'll hear from Shanifa on the contingency plans that we're planning for. I want to start off by reminding the board where the negotiations stand. Both the Long Island Railroad and the 5 unions we are negotiating with have agreed to the following retroactive wage increases. It's for 2023 and 2024, 3% each, and for 2025, it's a 3.5%. As a reminder, that is pattern conforming to what we have, and 80% of our unions have already agreed to that. The remaining sticking point, though, is the general wage increase for 2026. MTA has offered a 3% general wage increase. The 5 unions have requested a 5% increase, consistent with the Presidential Emergency Board's recommendations. This would set a new bargaining pattern for 2026 before we've come to agreements with any other union. This is consequential because it is unprecedented for a bargaining unit of just 3,700 employees to set such a broad pattern. As a reminder, TWU is 40,000 members out of the 70,000 employees the MTA employs. That's why they normally set the pattern and the other unions follow. The 5% GWI the unions have requested isn't in the MTA's budget. As a reminder, every 1% wage increase above the MTA budget is $100 million of expenses added to the MTA budget as a total. It should also come as no surprise that this negotiation point has implications for the state and the city budgets. Just a 1% increase above their budgeted amounts could result in $800 to $1 billion increases in their total budgets. The MTA and the unions could come to an agreement with reasonable changes to work rules that could curb expenses, support productivity, and deliver a more modern railroad. You've heard us talk about some of these rules. I'll dive into a few of them here. First, one rule stipulates that engineers who operate both electric and diesel trains in the same day are eligible for double pay. Engineers that move trains during revenue service and again within yard can get up to triple pay in a day. Third, ticket clerks are currently restricted to duties behind the ticket window and cannot support other customer service needs. If you recall a few years back, that was the standard in subways too, and we've moved them out of the booth. And last, some employees are allowed to work more than 18 hours in a row, resulting in fatigue and excess overtime. This is less about money and more about safety concerns for our employees. This isn't the full list, but a representative sample of some of the work rules we'd like to see revised. If we reach an agreement that does not lower costs through revised work rules and goes beyond what we've budgeted, we all foot the bill. And the entire MTA, not just Long Island Railroad, has to pay for this somehow. We could increase fares on Long Island Railroad, Metro North, subways, and buses. And instead of the regularly scheduled 4% fare increase, we could have an 8% fare increase in 2027. The state could increase taxes or introduce new ones, which would be a burden on all New York State taxpayers. We could cut commuter rail, subway, and bus service, meaning fewer trains when riders rely on us the most, or we could reduce headcount to cut payroll expenses. I think it's clear a strike is bad for everyone. First off, in case it wasn't clear, striking employees don't get paid. And that cost of lost income accumulates quickly. A 5-day loss of earning for employees could result in over 3,000 lost wages. That's almost 2% of their wages. We saw this also in the recent nurses' strike. The average nurse lost an estimated $18,000 in wages, and it's only recouping $6,000 annually. Those nurses won't see an increase in their paycheck until 2028. It also implicates hundreds of thousands of riders won't get into the city, like a nanny taking care of a child, a college student starting their internship in May in the city, or someone trying to get to a doctor's appointment. Riders will be frustrated, the local economy will struggle, and trust in our service will erode. Now I'll hand it over to Shanifa, our Chief Customer Service Officer, to talk about our contingency plans for the strike and how we'll be communicating to the customers.
Thank you. As Jay said, none of us want there to be a strike, but of course we have to prepare for the worst, and which is why we're rolling out a limited shuttle service from Points East to connection points in Queens, and as well as rolling out a bunch of customer messaging and comms, which many of you see on the screen on this slide, as well as an additional slide, which I will share soon. But let me repeat, this is a limited service plan. We cannot possibly replace Long Island Railroad's daily service, but we're going to do our best to ensure that no essential worker is stranded or left behind. For the time being, we encourage our customers to work remotely, if at all possible. We anticipate thousands of customers will be driven in cars and dropped off at subway stations. For those emergency workers who cannot get a ride, we are rolling out, again, as I said, a limited shuttle bus service operation. ADA accessible shuttle buses will run every 10 minutes during the weekday peak hours, and that is from 4:30 a.m. to 9 a.m., and in the evening, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. from 5 Long Island Railroad stations. Buses to and from Hicksville Station, Ronkonkoma, Mineola, will be doing drop-off at the ENF at 179th Street, and buses to and from Hempstead Lake State Park and Huntington will be doing drop-offs at Howard Beach, JFK at the A train. We will have lots of customer ambassadors on hand to help our customers move and navigate and answer any questions or concerns that they may have during this strike contingency plan. MTA rail operation MTA road operation will also be on hand to direct customers needing ADA assistance to shuttle bus service to Parch and Arthur. Riders on Nassau County should also consider using NICE buses to connect to 7 train at Flushing Main Street or travel to Jamaica Bus Terminal, which is a short walk to the F train at 169th Street. Again, as I anticipate, thousands of our customers will be dropped off via car, and we encourage and recommend the following stations for drop-offs. We have Woodhaven Boulevard, Aqueduct North, Conduit Avenue, Ozone Park, Lefferts Boulevard, Grant Avenue, Far Rockaway, Mott Avenue, Sheepshead Bay as well. So as Jay talked through some of the financial impacts and components, we're also going to issue a prorated refund to those May monthly ticket holders if who's been impacted by the strike during a business day. Of course, this is pending board approval. And so in the meantime, we ask that you stay tuned to all the MTA channels for the latest updates. Our website, we will go live today at mta.info/Long Island Railroad strike with the most updated information and all the information and details that I shared this morning. Also, Train Time app will have banners and lots of information, customer emails, 511. Stay tuned to social media as well as our 10,000 digital screens. And as we continue to engage electeds and stakeholders across the region, we may make consideration of adding additional bus service. So that will be in collaboration, in conversation with Rob and GCR. So again, please stay informed by using our MTA channels for the most up-to-date information. And with that, I will turn it over for questions.
I just have one point that shouldn't be lost, which is the striking workers are not the only ones who have impact, right? Mr. Leathers, I'm not going to ask anybody in labor to respond, but the reality is that the workers who are not striking, who show up, and they're obligated to show up, and they do. When there's no service, there are impacts to their earnings as well, because overtime and realistically is a piece of like a conductor's earnings. So even the Long Island Railroad workers who are not on strike will see some impacts. They're going to be professional. I know that they will follow the rules as they always do, but that can't be overlooked as well. This is bad literally for everybody, including the striking workers and the non-striking workers. Okay. Folks want to be heard on this. I saw Mr. Albert first, Mr. Chu, Mr. Gorodnik, Blanca Lopez, and Mr. Zuckerman.
Should this very unfortunate situation actually happen, is it the plan to provide additional subway service on many lines, anticipating people having driven from Nassau and Suffolk to the subway?
We're going to be on it, Andrew. Just so you are aware, I don't want to be light about it, but 100,000. If we were to get half of the Long Island Railroad riders come in, which is not going to happen based on the New Jersey Transit precedent, where only something like 10% or less actually traveled. But if we were for half, we have the capacity in our 4.5 million people a day subway system to manage it. The 7 line runs very, very frequently. Bill Amoruso is still here and still awake, and we've consulted with him. There was a derailment last night, so Mr. Amoruso did heroic work overnight.
Thanks.
But yeah, we'll have the capacity. We'll make sure.
Okay, Shanifa, just for your records, it's not the E and the F at 179th. It's just the F.
Okay. All right. That's always on my bingo card when we start talking about stations. We had Mr. Chu next. Yeah.
Just want to speak to the negotiations for a moment. The sanctity of the collective bargaining agreement and process is a core principle for me. I was a union apprentice in the IBW. Every article of clothing that my children wore through their formative years was paid for by a union wage, and that's a non-negotiable core principle for me. I have, and I think that's one of the reasons I serve on this board. I have an interesting perspective because I tested those principles were tested over time and time again as now a signatory contractor where I employ union electricians, and I also am a developer where I have a choice of whether or not to hire union trades. I've never ever elected or built anything but with full union labor. That being said, I also have, as my career's evolved, I've had to balance a budget. I've had to be accountable to the real costs and making sure that things penciled out. And that is where you, over time, get to see the full tension between what you want to pay, how generous you want to be, versus the reality of the situation. This board, my time in service on this board, I think has been a demonstration that we've all been working together to make sure that we are responsible to that bottom line. That's our job. That us doing that enables us to chart as sustainable course as possible for the agency. It allows us to make sure in a time where other transit agencies across the country were shutting down, that are still years later spiraling in fiscal calamity because they never made hard decisions and also didn't get significant help from their governor, from their legislator to keep going, which in exchange they delivered innovation, savings, efficiency to make sure they made good on that help. With that understanding, I don't think it is the full responsibility of any one of our signatory bargaining units to balance our budget. But I do think it should be a consideration. I do think every union member that goes to work, and I was one of those, just like when I went to work for my employer, I was always mindful of what came out the other side. And I say that not to minimize advocating for yourself, not to minimize negotiating for a better quality of life for you, for your family, but understand we're all in this together. That this agency, if we do not maintain sustainability, if we do not live true to our word that we made to make sure that we're being responsible to the budget and to the public, the fair payers, the taxpayers who also contribute to our budget, that don't ride the system, then we're not all doing our jobs collectively. That includes everyone who works, every one of our employees, and everyone who sits around this table. So I'll end by saying collective bargaining means you have to bargain. So I encourage everyone, and that includes the management team, and that includes everyone in leadership for all of the unions that are part of this process, to negotiate. Get in a room, have a cup of coffee, have a bagel, or pizza, whatever, however long it takes, drinks if necessary, and don't stop talking till we come to an agreement, because I don't think it should be it's been presented a lot further away than it needs to be. And I'm very hopeful. I'm going to pause on, we have some time, I'm going to pause on making comment on the contingency plans, because I am hopeful that we won't have to put those contingency plans in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. Ms. Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jay and Sharifa, thank you so much for the presentation, and I apologize if you had mentioned this. How much will it cost approximately to implement this contingency plan, and how are we paying for it? So depending on the service, it can range, if we provide 165 buses to about 275 buses, the range of a daily cost would be about $325,000 to $550,000 a day. This will come out of the MTA budget as... That's just the buses, sorry.
Also the overtime labor.
Yeah, so that's just the contingency bus fleet. Everything else would be on top of that within the MTA budget, and it's unbudgeted expenses.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick follow-up and budget question for you, Jay, and thanks to both of you for all that information. When you noted the extra percentage above what was approved by this board as having a $100 million impact for every percentage above, I believe it was 3%. I believe I understand that to be if this were to set the pattern for the rest, correct? It's not just this. It's this as applied to the rest of the workforce, including the TWU and everybody else, correct?
Correct. So if I can clarify,
Yeah.
every 1% above the budget, right? So if it is 2% above the budget amount that we have, it's 200 million annually recurring, right?
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Mr. Zuckerman, Mr. Leathers, Mr. Bringerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of remarks, and I think it's just amplifies some of what my colleagues have been saying, including Mr. Chu. In fact, when Mr. Chu said we were all in this together, that was going to be my opening way I was going to start my comments, but damn, I have to strike that and start anew.
File agreements.
You know, look, the history of labor is a very positive one for this country. I think we all, as you know, have to thank, for example, healthcare in this country coming from the UAW negotiating with General Motors because we didn't have healthcare as a provided service in this country, which is a whole other topic. But I think there's a difference between labor negotiating with a for-profit company that has the ability to just take a little less profits for the shareholders than negotiating with a public entity like we are. The reality is we are all in this together. And if you listen to Jay's very straightforward math, very straight, as the finance chair, I think a lot about this. We have a 1% wage increase above plan. That means we got to raise fares 2 percentage points. Just do that math. And in a world where there's a lot of stress about the economy, jobs for entry-level people have a fear for AI taking them away. I know people talking extensively in government, our mayor, our governor, about affordability. The reality is anything that smacks above inflation, above plan, has got to be paid somewhere. Now, inflation was, as I understand, in 2025, 3.3%. So a wage increase of 3.5% is obviously a tiny bit of a benefit to someone's personal pocket. And the private sector has not seen wage increases keeping up with inflation for about 25 years. So I'm supportive of labor getting an inflation increase so we can make sure they can keep up their purchasing power. And I'm a fan of maybe a little bit more because the reality is staff needs more flexibility in work rules. But it's got to come from somewhere. And we are sitting in enough fare hearings over the years that, as Jay said, you want to raise fares 8%, 10%? I mean, we can do that. We're all in this together. So if we want to raise the fares by 2x what we've been doing, we can collectively decide to do that. I'm not sure the riding public would tolerate it, but if we have to fund the wage increases in some way, that's the way to do it. That's not what I want to do. I know after 12 years, I've sat in a bunch of fare hearings, and we've been on the receiving end. The public thinks we're fare hiking when we raise it 2% a year. That's a hike. They call that a hike, 2%. That's barely keeping up with inflation. And not not the Trumpian inflation era, but the old inflation era. You can actually tell them that on Friday, that get the energy prices down. I know that's a good topic for you guys on Friday. Regardless, I just want to encourage labor to realize we're all in this together, as Sammy said, and we're all going to be in this together in a good way. Wages are a fair increase, or we're going to be in this in a bad way, and this poor board is going to have to start really hiking fares, which none of us. Shanif is the chief customer officer. This poor person is going to be stuck getting yelled at by 8 million people a day when they see their fares go up that high. So who's going to pay? Because I'm sure the rider does not want it. So thank you, sir.
Okay. Mr. Leathers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The sheet metal air Rail and Transportation Union at the Long Island Railroad, we represent more than half of the workforce there. And we hold the collective bargaining process in the highest regard and fully respect the right of our fellow rail workers to advocate for a fair and equitable deal. While SMART has an existing agreement in place, we stand by a fundamental tenet of labor solidarity, and SMART members will not cross a physical picket line established by the other unions should a work stoppage occur. However, it's our full intention to honor the agreement that we have in place. That being said, I would be remiss if I did not express my primary concern for our frontline SMART members, specifically our conductors, who engage with the public each and every single day. Any frustration caused by service disruptions must not be directed at the men and women of SMART. They deserve our unwavering respect, not our riders' frustration, as they navigate this complex period alongside their fellow rail workers. We thank our riders for their patience. We thank this board for its support. We thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we thank our SMART members for their continued professionalism and dedication to the moving of New York. Thank you.
Let me just echo what you just said. Thank you to the conductors in particular, all of your members for their professionalism. Your comment did not come from nowhere. Every time we have a countdown to a risk of a strike, the people who get the pushback from the customers are your conductors, and we're aware of that. And we will make a special effort to make sure that folks understand that the conductors are, again, within the confines of labor solidarity, they're not what's going on here. So we appreciate what you just said. Mr. Brinkman is next.
Okay, a couple of things. One, what would be the mechanism to check the riders that would be on the buses? Do we show monthly tickets? Can we still purchase regular tickets? Is there a charge? How do we handle that?
So, I mean, it's a shuttle service. I mean, so they are expected to show, but if they don't, we're just transporting them to the connection points in Queens so they can utilize the service.
Okay, that's great. The other thing is, I'm thrilled that we did add 2 more locations. 5 is much better than 3, but if you do possibly squeeze out another spot, we really need to have something on the South Shore. I don't know, anywhere between Babylon and Freeport, somewhere in there, to give our South Shore riders something. And last but not least, and this is my personal opinion, not the opinion of the Commuter Council or anything, I encourage the board, work within the numbers. You have a budget, you have a pattern. If you have to break that pattern, get some sort of give backs to make up that money, but work within the numbers, because what Mr. Zuckerman said, someone has to pay. And a portion of that payment, well, it's going to come from taxpayers, it's going to come from riders, and if you break the pattern without getting a give back, you're probably going to, like it was mentioned, well, the chair mentioned it, you might break our pattern. We're used to getting that 4% every 2 years. We can budget for it. We can anticipate it. If that jumps up to 6% every 2 years, or God forbid higher, our riders all have, we have cost of living to worry about as well. I mean, while we respect the unions and they're, trying to get the best they can for their membership, you also have to respect the ridership, and they have budgetary concerns too. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Herbst.
Thank you. First of all, Jay, you went through the information. I think the clarity was wonderful. Thank you so much. And Neil and Jerry, the comments you've just made about what the cost is, any implications, you made it so clear, and I don't want to just talk about that anymore. I agree with the positions that were stated. But as far as the contingency plan goes, the buses, you mentioned the cost of them. When do we start paying for them, and have we already incurred expenses before anything has even taken place? And I think that's also overlooked about just our preparation at this point.
excellent point, board member. In order for us to start thinking about that and planning for the contingency, we have, a contract with these bus providers, and if we don't provide enough notice, there is cost that we would incur, and it's at different points in time of how much we cancel. But I'll give you a point. Back in September when we were planning, we incurred $175,000 just to have the buses on standby in the event that we needed to use them for the weekend. That was canceled. We incurred less costs, but this would be a higher threshold of costs just for having them on standby. And the canceling window is, I believe, within 3 days.
Okay, now there is an authorization start date of a strike should they decide to implement. What if they do not implement? Do we stand by day until there's a possibility that a strike may happen and those contingent buses must be there daily? So even if there's no strike, the mere threat of a pending strike, we will have to incur those expenses daily.
Yes, that is correct. Because, as we laid out today, the messaging for our customer has begun today, and we have to convey that and prepare for the worst. And that is what we are doing. We have been in the space of preparation, as Jay mentioned, for some time, and we don't want to leave anyone stranded, but also to, keeping people informed. And should there be a strike, being readily available to get people moving, those essential workers to points and destinations that are critical.
Okay. You've stated, and it's obvious, that the buses cannot replace the Long Island Railroad service, and if the customers show up, there's only so many people that can get into the system. And as alternatives, are there plans as far as ride sharing, where we're encouraging people who are using automobiles to ride share? The parking at the facilities that you have probably cannot accommodate. We know that. Are there other locations that you're looking at, say the Nassau Coliseum as a parking facility, when we've had other sporting events, Jones Beach State Park, these lots, have they been discussed as potential locations? And are we looking at our bridges and tunnels about a fee structure, since there's probably going to be such an increase in vehicular traffic?
So all the recommendations you mentioned, nothing is off the table. And as our GCR team, as I mentioned, are going out and doing elected briefings as well as lots of community engagement, we are gathering all ideas and different recommendations to see what we can implement to make the impact less painful for these essential workers. So nothing is off the table.
Well, I think to make a good point, is we'll look at additional, we've heard from Mr. Brinkman, who's been consistent in asking for locations. You made some points about the parking capacity. The ideal is, of course, what gets overlooked is the drop-off. And we've highlighted a couple of locations where there is the right configuration to do a fair amount of drop-off, people dropping off in automobiles. But we'll also look at the additional parking that you've mentioned. I think that's underway already, but I'll make sure that happens. That's a good point. Anyone else wishing to be heard on this topic? We're going to, obviously, we're going to keep the board apprised, and we may be calling some special meetings on short notice to keep folks aware. Those are the two specials we wanted to cover. Make sure we got through today. I'll now turn to the routine business unless anyone has any other comments. Okay. The minutes of the March committee meetings and the board meeting have been distributed. Corrections or omissions? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as distributed. Bridge and Tunnel committee meeting. Who's reporting on Bridge and Tunnel committee meeting? Thank you.
I had the privilege of filling in for Chairman Mack on Monday. The Bridges and Tunnels Committee met on Monday and reports the following. The committee seeks approval to award one competitive item for a total of $4.3 million. The committee discussed its items, however, quorum was not present, and the action is brought before the full board today.
So, in the absence of recommendation, may I have a de novo motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Mahaltzis. All in favor? Any opposed or abstentions? The item is approved.
That concludes the TBTA report.
Mr. Herbst, Railroads.
Chair, the Railroad Committees met jointly on Monday and report the following. For Metro North Railroad, there is one competitive item for $796,800. And for the Long Island Railroad, there is one non-competitive item for $36 million. The committee recommends these items, and I move them.
Second, Ms. Lopez. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? The items are approved.
Mr. Chair, this concludes the Joint Railroad Report.
Thank you, Mr. Herbst. Ms. Mahaltzis.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. The New York City Transit Committee met on Monday, and there are no items for board approval.
Okay. Capital Program Committee, Mr. Garodnick.
The Capital Program Committee met Monday, reports the following: 3 procurement actions for proposed expenditure of $25.6 million. The committee recommends these items, and I move them.
I'll provide a second. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? The items are approved.
That concludes the Capital Program report.
Over to you, Mr. Zuckerman, for Finance.
Thank you, sir. We had a pretty light committee meeting on Monday, and we only have 4 transactional real estate items for board approval. The committee recommends these items, and I move them.
All in favor? No, second, please, first. Mr. Chu, second. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? The real estate items are approved.
Thank you, sir, and that concludes our finance
And
committee.
that concludes today's board business. I'll take a motion to adjourn with the proviso that we may be in touch about developing Long Island Railroad. Mr. Fleischer moves adjournment. Thank you, Ms. Lopez, for the second. We are in adjournment. Thank you. 11 o'clock.
Coming to the mic? Oh, you're not coming to the microphone. All right. We're ready to go. Everybody ready? Newsday TV is ready? Yeah? Thumbs up? Okay. All right, we're standing by.
So, anyone who says these MTA board meetings are over choreographed didn't come to the one today. We got a little activity in real time, but I was glad that we were able to take occasion. Anyone walks into the office and says, "I want to meet," we're ready to meet, and all the people. Our labor relations team was here. Rob Free was here, and it made sense to put aside the gamesmanship about who wants to meet. We are always for no condition meetings in person on important topic like this. We do not take the view that you have to say the magic words and we'll only meet with you on a Tuesday, or we're going to only meet with you if you come out to our play. No, just in-person negotiations, and I think it was positive. I haven't really gotten a full report, but I know that those discussions are continuing, and that was a step forward. And I'm glad they came here and we had the opportunity to do that. So with that, Mr. Minden.
All right, let's start today with a reporter who had an incredible enterprising story this week, Jose Martinez of the City, who had the memorable quote from Michael the Bull, the guy who advertises, "If the MTA messes with the bull, they get the horns." Great story, great quote. Jose, you're up.
He is a marketing genius, Mr. Bull.
You can't miss the bull.
The aptly named Bull, yes.
Thank you. Would you be able to address how things are looking within the subway system in terms of retail vacancies within the subway stations themselves?
I'm looking for Mr. Florio is not among us, is he? We'll get. Well, come on in. There is significant progress. There's a couple of the projects underway. Jose, we can give you. David's not here. We can give you all the stats, but in terms of the leases that have been signed, the work that's underway, we've the vacancy rate for the high the valuable retail spaces, the significant retail spaces, is way down. No secret that newsstands, the business model, has struggled, and we're looking at a lot of repurposing of those places, whether it's for vending, whether it's for art installations, and other strategies to make to obviously to put enliven those parts of the system. But Jamie.
Yeah, that's right. Our real estate group is doing great work, and we can give you the details, but what you'll see is at the big stations, the terminals, you're starting to see a lot of leasing activity occur at Grand Central, at Penn Station in that wonderful 33rd Street concourse, Grand Central Madison, lots of leasing happening. You're going to see new retail soon coming to the Times Square station. We're doing some preparatory work for that right now. And then, as Jano said, where we've got smaller spaces throughout the system, there's a lot of creativity going into figuring out what works for today's rider. Vending machines coming to the system, high quality stuff in them, lots of leasing for smaller food and beverage, and then looking at some of those areas, some of those places that once worked for retail and don't anymore, which is some subset of those spaces. There's this art programming that's happening from the system, and there's some great stuff coming out from that as well.
And just just a little more detail, and give us a chance to assemble all the details, because like Grand Central is doing amazingly well, for example. So that's a very positive sign. But some of the older newsstand spaces and other smaller retail spaces did not have services. They didn't have power. They didn't have water, and that's inhibited, re-renting them for non-newsstand type uses. So we're in the process of, in a few cases, actually bringing services, which is expensive, to those locations as well. Okay.
All right, let's move on to Long Island's own Alfonso Castillo. He's here with Ed Quinn, Newsday TV. Go, Alfonso.
Hello. Definitely want to ask about the contract situation. Before that, I want to ask you about this morning in the East River tunnels, what happened there with train being disabled. I know you guys have warned about the potential for calamity with one tunnel already out of service. So can you or Rob tell us what happened there?
Sure. Hi, Alfonso. Earlier this morning, there was a New Jersey Transit train disabled in Line 4. And, as you said, we're down to 3 tunnels. When that happens, we're down to 2 tunnels. So after the train had cleared, one of our passenger trains operated through the tunnel and struck some form of debris. We don't know where it came from. We're not saying it's from this New Jersey Transit train. All I can say is right now that we hit a piece of metal debris down in the tunnel, and we're still assessing the damage to the infrastructure. The train, it happened about 6:15 a.m. We evacuated the people off the east end of the train with the following train, and the west people in the west cars. We cut cars away, and it operated into Penn Station. The rest of the cars have been taken out of the tunnel. With Amtrak, it's their tunnel. They're assessing the damage, and we anticipate getting back to normal schedule during the off-peak period. We still need a final assessment to determine if there are any impacts to the PM rush hour, and we'll let everyone know once that happens. But again, it's still under investigation. We're not sure where the debris came from.
Okay, thank you. On the contract situation, I don't know if this is for you or Jano, I'm trying to squeeze in a couple here. One is, any update on what happened today? Are you guys still meeting? Is it wrapped up for the day?
One, as I said, good to have face-to-face negotiations. 2, initial discussion. I'm not going to talk about the substance, but an agreement to continue the discussions irrespective of when the NMB, there was availability issues with NMB personnel apparently, who are based in Washington, that led to that postponement, and our teams agreed to continue meeting irrespective of when the NMB is available. So the NMB will be invited to come in, but we're going to keep going with these 2 groups, and that's all I'm going to say.
For the day, though, are you done?
I don't know, because we were back there, but I haven't had a full debrief from the labor relations team, who is not with us. I don't know whether they've completed.
So another thing, a lot of discussion today about how you pay for these raises, if you did have to pay for them, talk of fare increases as high as 8%. The unions have said, and the PEBs agreed, that essentially you have the money, and that they've said...
I disagree with that characterization. The unions definitely have said you got the money, but they talk about things like, oh, you're conducting money from congestion pricing. Yes, everybody in this room knows congestion pricing is going to the capital program so we can fix and upgrade the system. They said you got casino revenues. Yes, that's true, but everybody in this room, especially by board members who spoke out so strongly about the financial implications, everybody knows the casino revenues were already factored into the financial plan, the budget that we have. So there's no new free money sitting around waiting to be assigned to this union, or indeed, because all of the, any deal that gets made does potentially cascade through the entire MTA labor relations arrangement at $100 million for every point above budget. So when people say you have the money, that's not. Now, when you say the PEB, who is advisory, they're giving a recommendation. Now my understanding was, what they said was, these increases are merited on cost of living grounds, and otherwise they didn't have a whole viewpoint of the MTA budget. So I just need you to be really clear about that. That was not the basis of the PEB recommendations.
All right, while Rob is in, go ahead.
Please.
You have something else?
Alfonso, I know this was mentioned before. I just do want to say that PEB in their decision did recognize that there were costs associated with this. And I may be paraphrasing, but they said it wasn't substantial. And I find it interesting, a party that's not responsible to cover these costs saying that. We have a budget, we have costs, we have fare increases, we try to stay within a reasonable amount. We just have to recognize that there's cost. If you make X dollars and you make a little bit more, there's a cost with that, and we have a budget, right? So there is a cost associated with this.
And the NMB knows about budgets. So when there was no budget, the federal government, they couldn't have meetings with us. So they do know about budgets, and ours is a little bigger. And it cascades, as I said, not just through the MTA's labor relations picture, but also city and state.
Well, and Alfonso is a rider from Valley Stream. He understands the concept of having to pay more money because settlements are agreed to. Kevin Vesey,
the accusation has been made by the press office that he sometimes goes to the city side of the line and gets it. So I don't personally believe that, but I just need you to know that our people, and the people are saying, in the words of President, people are saying.
Kevin VC, News 12 Long Island is with us. Kevin.
Thank you so much. So were you expecting these impromptu talks with the unions to happen today, or were you surprised by
No,
that?
I mean, somebody walks in to our house and says, we want to meet with you, and basically says, you don't want to meet with us. I called BS on that because we do want to meet with them. We want to every day have no conditions, negotiations continue. Up to now, there have been conditions placed on having meetings, and I thought it was great that they showed up, and we had our team here, and we were ready to go. So I was glad that they gave us that opportunity, and I'm glad the discussions happened.
And you said that you've agreed to speak in the future
Yes.
with no conditions. Do you have a date set for another meeting?
Well, they have actually had the scheduling discussions. I'm not going to get into specifics, but they are making plans to have a meeting with specific schedule.
All right, Kevin, nice to have you in New York City. Let's go to Michelle Caskey from Bloomberg News right there.
Hi, Jano. So, talking about the World Cup, on Monday, the mayor and the governor announced that there would be these fan sites set up. One of them at the U.S. Tennis Center. And when I look at the scheduling, it looks like there are 10 days where you have both these viewing parties at the U.S. Tennis Center, along with the Mets are playing at Citi Field. And now I know this isn't totally new for the MTA because of the U.S. Open.
USTA and the Mets frequently happen at the same time.
Yes, they frequently happen. But
and it's almost
what-
exactly the same population. So,
That's right.
you know.
So, what are your plans?
Our
Are there
plans
any
is to
changes?
the
then?
plan is to run the type of service that we provide during the U.S. Open, and to get everybody to and from these events. You know, just to be clear, like the projections about the numbers of people who are going to be here are not inconsistent with, you know, our tourists, the volumes of tourists that we deal with on a regular basis, especially with major events like the U.S. Open at the Billie Jean King Center. So, so we're ready and we're excited and we're determined to provide good service, and we have the capacity. We have the capacity to do that. So that was not news. What I do want people to understand is, I actually spoke to Catherine Garcia, and there was some, Catherine Garcia at the Port Authority, and there was some discussion floating around about whether New Yorkers were being advised to stay home on match days. She and I agreed that was not the case. New Jersey Transit has a unique problem, a unique challenge, I should say, on those match days. But the MTA and New York is ready to, you know, run regular and some enhanced service, and to accommodate everybody, whether they're going to work or they're going to doctor or going to school. Nobody needs to stay home because the World Cup is having an event.
And what about any details on enhanced service during the World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get into the specifics. You pointed out that the dates are being nailed down. We're studying where those special events overlap with other special events, and how our service and the work and the construction work that's going on in the summer when we're active, and we're making the plan to provide, you know, good service on those days. John.
Michelle, we're in touch with the host committee on these topics to make sure, and as the chair said, you know, we put on a lot of service for a lot of events all the time, so we're coordinating closely with them on these events and others.
Okay. Good. Thanks.
All right, let's go to Ethan Stark Miller from AM New York. Ethan.
I liked that intro. So I was curious about the Eagle team announcement that Demetrius made earlier this week. You know, we're hearing that people are going to have their phones scanned possibly. Is there any concern that, you know, riders are going to get mad about that thing, you know, having their phone scanned, having their credit card scanned, seeing that as like an invasion of privacy to a certain extent?
Listen, this is modern fare payment enforcement, the way it works in all over the Western world. You know, my brother lives in Europe, and routinely when he gets on, somebody comes up to him and says, show me how you paid, and let's validate that you paid. And if it doesn't scan properly, they're issued a ticket that they're supposed to pay on the spot. That's not our plan. But we would like to, as part of moving towards the all-digital system, we're going to implement it. We've been testing it out, as Demetrius described, and it's working fine. I think that there is a very high rate of customer compliance. We haven't gotten a lot of pushback. It may happen, but this is the right way to validate fares in the 21st century in the Western world. So we're comfortable with it. We've been testing out the technology, and the Eagle teams have been implementing this methodology successfully. And it's going to get bigger. We're going to have more Eagle teams, and New Yorkers are welcoming folks just to reestablish the position that everybody's got to play by the same rules on the buses that they do on the subways. Demetrius?
Just add a couple things to what the chair said. So first thing is employees are being trained how to deal with customers, what to say in instances where they encounter a customer that that may not necessarily be readily willing to present their information. But we're also doing the work up front. Having the teams go out there, do leaflets, talk to customers in advance of implementing this. We're having customer information screens changed to be able to tell customers. We're adding signage to buses so that people know that this change is coming. So it is our goal to be as informative as possible, so this is not a surprise to the public. And the fact that we talked about your personal information is not included in these devices. It is really just a verification of whether or not you paid to enter the service.
All right, let's move on to Haley Brown of the New York Post.
Mom, Donnie named a Fast and Free Buses advisor. Do you have any plans to meet with her? Has she reached out to you at all?
No.
Would you meet with her? If she reached out?
Absolutely. She's somebody who's known advocacy professional. I know her slightly. I've met her a few times. She's a smart person. But if she's inclined, we will definitely meet with her.
All right, let's go next door to Samantha Liebman from New York One. Sam? Just need to activate your microphone, television thing. Thank you.
On the Eagle teams and the pay verification, two questions. One is, when did you start ramping this up and implementing the pay verification, and have you seen a bump in riders paying? The second, I'll get to the second question after, but yeah.
Listen, it's been, Demetrius will come up and get into specifics. It's been going on for a little while since we were able to be piloting the new handheld devices, which are an upgrade and which are obviously key. You need a reliable device that works quickly in order to do this effectively.
So generally, we like to implement things in waves, and so this was a great opportunity to try things in advance. Omni is a great opportunity also. You have the ability to have all of your access on these devices, whether it's your phone, a card, your mobile device. It's pretty exciting to be able to have verification. So we started a little bit on some of the SBS routes, having the teams go out there. The teams have been piloting the equipment initially. We want to make sure that it works. And so far, we have been getting additional verification with some of our customers who have not paid, and giving them a warning in advance. It's your requirement to be able to pay to get on the bus. But we're going to continue to do more of that before we implement.
And the second question is, with the validators and the removal of MetroCard readers, why are you waiting to pull the plug on any other payments except for tap to pay? Oh, should I repeat the question?
Go ahead.
You're already implementing these pay verifiers, and you're removing the MetroCard readers from turnstiles. Why not pull the plug now on alternative payments and just go full tap to pay now?
We're going to do that soon. I think we're at 97, somewhere between 97 and 98% penetration of Omni. So we've got, 2% of people are still using Metro cards. We want to give them a chance to spend down Metro cards. They can also turn them in for value on Omni device. But
I actually heard that it's 2% are paying with change still on the bus.
I think
and
altogether it's 2%,
Yeah.
not Omni. So maybe
Yeah.
coin on bus. We don't get full fare when we do coin on
Right.
bus. But we're getting there, and you're not wrong, Sam. That at some point before the end of this year we will finalize the transition to Omni. But we want to give everybody a chance to spend down their Metro cards, whatever they have, turn them in, and reach that last couple of percentage points of people who are devoted to Metro card. But we're almost there, and give also the fare validator teams a chance to train and to get experience in this new system.
All right, directing your attention, sir, to the Zoom equipment where Liam Quigley is standing by from WNYC Gothamist in an undisclosed location, but it looks street side. Liam.
Hello, how are you?
Okay.
Hear me
Go
okay?
ahead. Go ahead. Yep.
Okay. Can you help us visualize the Grand Central Train Shed project? Are you going to basically peel back Park Avenue and totally rip that up? I'm asking because Mamdani today announced that the DOT is looking at a major overhaul to that public space.
Okay. Well, I don't know what the mayor announced, but we have been working from day one. Number one, we're not peeling back Park Avenue, just to be clear. We are rebuilding the train shed, which is the concrete and steel structure that is, in effect, the bridge that creates Park Avenue over all the train tracks that are underneath. We've been doing that, space by space, block by block, inch by inch for some time in certain areas where we had funding to do that. And we're going to continue doing that, and we're getting it done much, much faster than was originally planned by the MTA, where they thought it was going to be a 30-year process. That's so important, because otherwise, if you continue to let concrete and steel be exposed to water, salt, and chemicals, you're going to have areas where the concrete spalls, the structure is compromised, and you can't run trains in those areas. So this is a super important project. We've gotten funding from some of the big real estate projects on Park Avenue. We've talked about that a lot in the past. We're continuing to collect funding from all those real estate projects that are around it. And we have been planning to do the work. When we do that work, we are also arranging to do the city's work to rebuild and expand the Park Avenue median. So that's very much a collaboration for the rebuilding of Park Avenue. And I'm going to turn it over to Jamie to get into some of the specifics.
Yeah, that's right, Liam. We're thrilled that we're able to incorporate these public realm improvements that are a priority for the city on Park Avenue as we're rebuilding those portions of the train shed. That's an agreement that we made with them, and we saw that the mayor put out some early renderings of what they're thinking about a few minutes ago. It's great. We're able to get that done through a public-private partnership, and as we rebuild service that carries 98% of Metro North service, we're able to put those medians back, and the city is fully funding any incremental cost from those public realm improvements. And what we see today is that they are hitting, we have an agreement that's very specific that they can't slow down the work on the train shed. They're hitting their marks on the design, getting that done, and they got to hit their marks on coming up with the funding as well, but we're confident that that's going to work out.
All right, let's just shift to Liam's in-house colleague here. Stephen Nesson is with us. Stephen.
Hello, Chair. My colleague published a story this week about a spike in people being taken to court after police stopped them for sleeping or spreading out on trains. So our question for you is, do you support NYPD Commissioner Tisch's approach of having police arrest people and take them into custody for lying down in the transit system? Do you think that's making the transit system safer?
What I support is that the NYPD under under Jessica Tisch's leadership, has significantly driven down subway crime in general. You've heard me say it many times, 14% down since before COVID, like 3 or 4% down versus year over year. And it's, it's 3 or 4% additional down this year over last year. So we love what the NYPD has been doing. We have a really close relationship with them. We also support their quality of life focus and work with them just to pass on information about what our passengers are telling us about places where quality of life issues take place. We don't get into how the police manage a particular quality of life condition, but broadly speaking, we appreciate and support what this NYPD has been doing to make the subway system statistically safer and also feel safer, and we're always working with them.
And sorry, could I just ask one question about the Greenpoint tunnel work, if you would be so kind? Can you describe, because I don't think we've gotten a briefing exactly what is being done in the tunnels. Can you describe that work and how much is that going to cost? And is it something that could be done on nights rather than weekends?
Well, the bottom line is whenever we're doing a lot of work on very old structure. And I hope this group of beat reporters who cover us intensely can recognize that what we frequently do is we go in and we take preliminary invasive testing readings, and we use that to evaluate the condition of a structure or a tunnel or an element of the system. But when you actually open it up, you do encounter conditions that sometimes are better and sometimes worse than those, because you can't tear it all apart to find out. In this case, we did identify that there was more damage to the structural elements of the Newtown Creek Tunnel than had originally been forecasted, and it requires us to do some additional work. It's basically, the impact of the water penetrations was worse than originally projected, and that's what caused us to add some weekends. So, I'm going to leave it at that. If you, want to put in another request for information, we'll get back to you. But that's what has driven this. And not for nothing, this is, Stephen, you guys covered this stuff, for over a year, that the conditions of the basic elements of our system are really degraded. And it means we're going to have to do a lot of work where we're going in and taking apart stuff that hasn't been touched in generations. And, the first take on it is not absolutely guaranteed to be certain to figure out the whole condition. And this is going to come up again and again. With Greenpoint, I just remind everybody, it's kind of, on you guys to communicate it effectively, the benefits of this project. Not only is this community, the EG train riders who are super, transit intensive riders, they're getting new signaling. We're getting ADA in several stations. This was not an accessible portion of our system. We are getting cell service, and we're putting ourselves in a position where we can, if the ridership justifies it, and I hope and expect that it may, we can run more service when this work is done. But you got to get the work done. So we're going to, respectfully to the elected officials and everybody who's raised this issue, yes, we are not thrilled that we have to do a little bit more, do a few more outages, and we are, what was getting lost in the last couple of days is we are going to be working with the community and with the businesses and the elected officials to identify what are the optimal weekends to do those 10 outages within the constraints of having a properly functioning project. What I explained to one elected official last night is, hey, telling us to do work on overnights is not, the overnights are really of limited value, because by the time you set up and you take the work down, you have really short time period to get work done, and it's disrupted. There's some work that needs to be done over weekends. You guys have seen the productivity we've gotten from doing that, and we have to take weekends to do some of this work. And that's why we've identified the 10 weekends, and we're going to keep working with everybody. So that's a longer answer than Nesson probably wanted. It's definitely longer than Minton wanted, but that's the situation.
I'll take it.
Anybody need more time to take notes on the benefits? We had the ADA, we had the cell service, we had the new all right, I just want to
Customer satisfaction on the G train up to 81%. I think the second highest rating of any line. So we're doing something right on the G train. Don't forget it.
All right, let's move on to a man who is operating on limited sleep.
Bill
David
Amoruso.
Colon coming down from another Knicks victory. They're up 3-2, but he's here with us nevertheless from Streets Blog. Dave.
The actual reason I'm operating like that is I got back from a week in New Orleans last night. Well, I'm not going to put that part on the microphone. But I got
les bon ton.
I have not eaten a vegetable in a week. I did, however, catch up on what has been going on here in my absence, particularly on Monday, I guess. And I know that that day, the Interborough Express came up, and you mentioned that normally something like this would get a lot of federal support, maybe even the whole thing, price tag would get federal support. But you're not really expecting that this time, and you're making some strategies for other ways to pay for it. So I'd be curious, what strategies are you thinking of? Are you looking at things like value capture? And also, I mean, is this something that you're basically looking to avoid, something like the way that the federal government held up congestion pricing with their demands on, not moving forward at all with the environmental review? Or is this just you think the federal government is out of the transit funding game at all?
I would just say it's a strategy of optimistic realism. We'll absolutely apply for federal money, but we are looking at alternatives in light of, what we've seen about how discretionary grant money is being distributed in this administration. We're not unrealistic about that. Dave, respectfully, I'm going to take a pass on talking about what are the strategies that we're considering. There are a range of them, and we're going to be, if they start to become more real and more current, we're going to obviously let you guys know what they are. But right now, we're looking at it. We have a certain amount of state money as a result of, the fact that Governor Hochul has captured what previously was set aside for Penn Station for the IBX, but we need a little bit more resources to advance the physical construction of the property, even if we're doing it in a phased manner.
And have you gone over the whole not looking at or hoping, presuming you're not getting federal money? I mean, is that something you talked about with the governor's office at all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They understand. What we're trying to do is to make sure that we have options for moving the project. The good news is the project is moving quickly through the design process, which is a huge, people assume that it's simple, but this is a huge piece of it. It requires you to, go out and evaluate the condition, do all the engineering analysis of each of those 50 bridges, and to figure out all kinds of really complicated technical stuff. We're making a lot of progress on that front. We're going through the environmental review, and we're going to be ready to do construction in a couple of years. We want to make sure that we could move quickly into construction rather than waiting around for Santa Claus. So we're taking a lot of different approaches.
All right, closing out the proceedings today is Evan Simko Bednarski of the New York Daily News. Evan.
Hey, Jenna. Got a question on unauthorized subway movements. I know in a couple of these instances, the subways haven't gotten very far. They've hit, a mobile trip stop that's been set up for trains on layup. In a couple of instances, trains in, to the layperson's eye, a similar layup situation have gotten quite far. So I'm wondering if somebody can comment on what's the standard practice for setting up those movable stops, and when are they used, when are they not?
Demetrius Critchlow approaching the microphone.
Hey, Evan. We do, the first thing is we do a lot of service, but on the nights and weekends, we run a lot of GOs, doing work at all times. And those GOs generally require you to move equipment from one location to the next. So no day is the same. Every day is different. Trains wind up in different locations. And so we've been strategically looking at the geos in advance to be able to send folks out to place out portable trips in advance of them. You know, it takes a lot of work to be able to work with the teams to calculate where we're going to be, to calculate the resources that are going to be sent out, but the team does a really good job of ensuring that the system is safe and that these movements aren't being done. We are working with our partners, NYPD, to be able to have a list of the locations where we are laying up trains underground, so that this and other instances of, say, for example, graffiti aren't happening to our system. So we are all hands on making sure that the system remains safe.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Any closing words, sir? No, we're good. Thank you, Jamie, Rob, Demetrius, Jano, and good afternoon from Lower Manhattan.